All right, so for this deep dive, you've sent us a research paper about the Jack the Ripper case.
Oh, wow.
And it uses modern crime scene analysis to kind of try to separate fact from fiction
Interesting.
surrounding the Whitechapel murders.
Right.
And let me tell you, there are some seriously fascinating details in this paper.
Yeah.
I've got an expert in criminal profiling and crime scene analysis here with me to help us unpack it all.
Right.
What's your take on why this case, even after a century, still has such a hold on people?
I think it's the mystery.
The mystery.
Yeah. And the brutality of the crimes,
Yeah.
the time and the place, too.
Yeah, it's both familiar and, like, incredibly distant at the same time. Like,
Correct.
1880s London.
Whitechapel.
Whitechapel was notorious for poverty and crime.
But murder was statistically rare,
Oh, really?
even with unreliable official records.
Yeah.
So when these gruesome killings started,
All right.
it really shook people to the core.
Makes you realize how much fear these murders must have instilled.
Oh, absolutely.
This paper actually provides a table
Oh, good.
of 11 victims
11 victims.
connected to the case,
Right.
and it lists them with their dates of death.
Oh, okay.
So we've got Emma Smith,
Okay.
Martha Tabram,
Mm-hmm.
Marianne Nichols,
Uh-huh.
Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride,
Wow.
Catherine Eddowes, Mary Jane Kelly, Rose Mylett, Alice Mackenzie,
Okay.
an unidentified woman, and Frances Coles,
A lot of victims.
all murdered between April 1888 and February 1891.
Oh, wow. So over a few years.
Yeah. Before we get into the analysis,
Sure.
can you remind us the difference between a killer's modus operandi
Right.
and their signature?
Sure. So think of MO as the how of a crime.
Okay, the
The actions a criminal takes to commit it.
Right.
So their habits, their patterns.
Okay.
Signature, on the other hand, is the why.
The why.
So those unique psychologically revealing behaviors that go beyond what's needed to simply commit the crime.
Okay.
So signature is what helps us link crimes. And even more importantly, understand the offender's psyche.
So taking a look at these 11 Whitechapel murders, what kind of MO emerges?
Well, 6 of the murders show a really similar MO.
6. Okay.
Those of Tabram,
Mm-hmm.
Nichols, Chapman, Stride, Eddowes, and Kelly.
Okay.
All the victims were white female prostitutes,
Okay.
generally aged 24 to 45,
Uh-huh.
living in poverty.
Yeah.
The attacks all took place between midnight and 6 a.m.,
Late at night, early morning.
typically later in the week,
Okay.
and confined to a 1-mile square area.
So geographically concentrated.
Right.
All right.
Each victim was strangled,
Okay.
then had her throat slashed with a sharp, long knife,
Oh, wow.
and was killed right where they were attacked.
So we've got 6 murders with a shared MO.
Mm-hmm.
Does that automatically mean they were all committed by the same person?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
MO can evolve as a killer gains experience.
Okay.
Or adapts to different situations.
Yeah.
It's the signature,
Right.
those unique psychological markers.
Mm.
That really helps us determine if we're dealing with the same individual.
Okay.
And this is where this deep dive gets really fascinating.
Okay, I like where this is going.
The research identifies 7
7. Okay.
key signature characteristics
Wow, 7. That's a lot.
that conclusively link those 6 Whitechapel murders.
Okay, so 7 characteristics. That's quite a specific fingerprint.
It is.
What are they?
The first is picarism.
Okay.
So deriving sexual pleasure from stabbing, cutting, or slicing.
Right.
And the research notes an escalation in its severity
An escalation.
throughout the 6 linked murders.
Okay, so it got worse.
It got progressively more extreme.
Picarism is often cited in serial killer profiles.
Right.
But to see it escalate like that, does it suggest the killer's urges were growing stronger?
It's possible.
Or that he needed more to satisfy them?
That's a question that criminal profilers grapple with even today.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
It's a chilling insight into the darkness that can lurk within the human mind.
Yeah, for sure.
The second characteristic is incapacitation.
Incapacitation, okay.
The killer's need to immediately silence and subdue his victims
Right.
to gain complete control and prevent any resistance.
So he wanted to be completely in control.
Exactly.
Okay.
There's no sign of a struggle in these 6 cases,
Really?
indicating he likely grabbed them from behind,
Okay.
strangled them quickly,
Right.
then moved on to the throat slashing.
So a combination of picarism and this need for absolute control.
Hmm?
What else stands out in these murders?
Well, the third characteristic is overkill,
Overkill.
the infliction of wounds,
Okay.
far exceeding what's necessary to kill.
Wow.
The reports describe throats cut so deeply that heads were nearly severed.
That's horrifying. horrifying.
It's a level of brutality that points to a potent combination of rage
Right.
and a need for domination,
Wow.
far beyond simply wanting to end the life.
Yeah, this is where the case truly enters the realm of horror.
It does.
It makes it hard to imagine the state of mind of the person committing these acts. What else points to the killer's psychology?
The next element is open display.
Open display.
The bodies were left in public,
Mm-hmm.
posed in ways meant to shock and degrade the victims.
Wow.
This wasn't about simply hiding a crime.
Right.
It's almost as if the killer was making a statement,
A statement. Okay.
showcasing his power, his arrogance,
Like he wanted to be caught.
almost
Okay.
his belief that he was untouchable.
So it's like he wanted not only to kill, but to dehumanize his victims, even in death.
Yes, exactly.
Were there any other signature behaviors connected to how the bodies were found?
Yes, the fifth characteristic is unusual body position,
Unusual body position.
specifically the way the victims were posed,
Okay.
often with legs splayed and clothes disarranged.
Oh, gosh.
This goes beyond just open display.
Right.
A deliberate act of dehumanization
Okay.
and an assertion of the killer's power over his victims.
So we got the pickerism,
Right.
the overkill, the open display, the posing.
Yes.
Each element more disturbing than the last.
It is a chilling progression.
What other signature behaviors did the researchers identify?
The sixth is post-mortem mutilation.
Oh.
And here we see a truly disturbing progression.
A progression. Okay.
It starts with cutting,
Uh-huh.
but as the murders continue,
Right.
it escalates to the removal and potential harvesting of organs.
Harvesting of organs. Wow.
It points to a deepening depravity
Deepening depravity.
and possibly even some anatomical knowledge.
Interesting. You mentioned earlier that MO can evolve
Yeah,
to become less messy as a killer gains experience,
right.
but the mutilation seems to contradict that.
That's true.
It's like a compulsion that overrides practicality.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
It's as if there are two competing impulses at play here.
Two. Okay.
The need for control and efficiency
Mm-hmm.
versus this dark, almost ritualistic desire to mutilate.
Wow.
And that tension is something that continues to fascinate and horrify us about this case.
For sure.
The final signature characteristic the research highlights is premeditation.
Premeditation.
Yeah.
Okay.
The choice of locations bringing and removing a weapon.
Right.
The absence of struggle.
Yeah.
It all points to a level of planning that goes beyond a crime of passion.
So this wasn't impulsive.
Yeah.
It was calculated and methodical.
Exactly.
So we've got these 6 Whitechapel murders, all linked by 7 distinct signature characteristics.
Right.
But how do we know these weren't simply common elements in murders at that time?
Good question.
How do we know for sure we're dealing with a single killer?
That's where a truly innovative aspect of this research comes in.
Okay, let's hear it.
To assess the likelihood of a single perpetrator,
Okay.
the researchers compared these 7 signature characteristics to a modern database of murders.
Wow, okay, that's interesting.
The Homicide Investigation Tracking System, or HITs.
Wow, using modern data analysis to try to understand a historical crime.
It's a fascinating approach.
Yeah, tell me more about this HIT's database. What does it analyze?
HITs analyzed over 3,000 murders
3,000 murders.
in Washington state
Okay.
between 1981 and 1995,
Wow, so quite a bit of data.
providing a significant data set for comparison.
Okay.
And the results,
Yeah.
when applied to the Jack the Ripper case, are quite compelling.
Okay, I'm hooked. What did they find?
Well, the HIT analysis revealed something extraordinary.
Extraordinary, right?
The specific combination of those 7 signature behaviors,
All 7.
the picarism, the incapacitation, the overkill, the open display, the unusual positioning, the post-mortem mutilation,
Wow.
and the premeditation,
It's a mouthful.
is
Okay.
exceptionally rare.
So even with thousands of murders, to compare it to this specific combination is an outlier.
Precisely.
Okay.
In fact, they found no cases in the HIT's database
None.
where a prostitute was murdered, posed, and mutilated.
So really unique.
That's a chilling confirmation of just how unique this signature truly is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it seems we've begun to peel back the layers of myth and speculation surrounding Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, we've used this modern data analysis to link 6 of the Whitechapel murders to a single perpetrator. Right.
with shockingly specific signature behaviors.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
That leaves 5 other murders from the list you mentioned earlier
Right.
still on the table.
What about
them?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
More interesting. Okay.
Those 5 murders,
Okay.
Smith Milet Mackenzie,
Mm-hmm.
the unidentified victim, and Cole's
Right.
don't share the same signature characteristics.
So, based on the signature analysis,
Right.
it's unlikely they were the work of Jack the Ripper.
It seems that way.
Does that mean there were other killers active in Whitechapel at the time?
That's a possibility.
Or could these be copycat crimes,
Oh, that's possible too.
inspired by the Ripper's notoriety?
It's definitely something to consider.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
important to remember that Whitechapel was a rough place,
Right.
and violence, while not as statistically common as we might think, wasn't unheard of.
So maybe these other 5 murders, while brutal,
Yep.
simply didn't fit the very specific psychological profile that we've been able to build of the Ripper.
Exactly. This deep dive shows us how signature analysis
Right.
can be a powerful tool in criminal profiling.
Yeah, powerful stuff.
It allows us to connect events that might seem unrelated
Uh-huh.
and reveal those hidden patterns of behavior
Right.
that point to a specific individual.
Hmm.
And in this case, those patterns paint a pretty disturbing picture.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
it's the dark side of humanity.
We're seeing a killer driven by this intense rage.
Yes, a lot of rage.
A need for power and control.
Control's a big factor.
And as we discuss that deeply disturbing element of picarism,
Right, that's a key part of his signature.
the research paper goes into some detail about the murder of Elizabeth Stride,
Oh, Elizabeth Stride, yes.
where the killer was seemingly interrupted.
Interrupted, okay.
And it speculates that this interruption might be why the level of mutilation on her body wasn't as severe
I see.
compared to the others.
Interesting.
Can't be right.
It's an intriguing possibility.
Yeah.
It gets even more interesting when you consider the murder of Catherine Eddowes,
Catherine Eddowes.
which happened less than 2 hours later.
Wow. So soon after.
The authors suggest that this could have been the killer's way of finishing the job.
Finishing the job. Wow.
He'd started with Stride,
Right.
perhaps driven by frustration
Restoration.
or a need to complete his ritual.
So we're not only seeing an escalation in the Ripper's signature,
Right.
but also a possible reaction to being thwarted.
Exactly.
It adds another layer of complexity to this psychological puzzle we're
That's
trying to
kinda-
solve.
A very complex puzzle indeed.
Yeah.
This deep dive reinforces the idea that Jack the Ripper wasn't simply a brutal killer,
Right.
but a deeply disturbed individual
Okay.
whose crimes were driven by a complex web of psychological needs
Psychological needs.
and desires.
And those needs and desires, as we've seen,
Yeah.
evolved over time,
They did.
becoming more extreme, more ritualistic. You
If
can
you're
see
gonna-
that evolution not only in the increasing severity of the mutilations,
Right.
but also in the shift from outdoor murders to the indoor killing of Mary Jane Kelly.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, it's like he needed more privacy,
Privacy, yes.
more time to carry out his dark fantasies.
It's a chilling thought.
And the Kelly case,
Yes.
it's considered the most brutal of them all, right?
It is. The research paper details the extensive mutilation,
Uh-huh.
the removal and arrangement of organs.
Wow.
It truly was a horrific culmination of all those signature elements we've discussed.
Right.
The picarism, the overkill, the posing.
It makes you wonder what would have happened if he hadn't stopped there.
That's the question, isn't it?
Would his crimes have continued to escalate?
It's possible.
Or would he have eventually been caught?
We can only speculate.
Yeah, those are questions that continue to haunt us even after all these years.
They do.
We'll probably never know the answers for certain.
Probably not.
But this deep dive has given us invaluable insights
Insights for sure.
into the mind of a killer.
It's a glimpse into a very dark place.
And it really highlights how valuable it can be to re-examine historical cases
Right.
with the benefit of modern forensic techniques.
It's amazing what we can learn with new technology.
Yeah, we can learn so much from the past,
Absolutely.
even when those lessons are dark and unsettling.
That's true.
But back to those 5 murders that don't fit the Ripper's profile.
Yes.
Where does that leave us in the overall picture of Whitechapel at the time?
Well, it reminds us that even in the midst of this terrifying high-profile case,
Yeah.
life and sadly crime went on.
Right.
And that those other victims, whoever their killer or killers may have been,
Mm-hmm.
deserve our attention and consideration as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Their stories are part of the Whitechapel story, too.
It's a sobering thought.
It is.
It's easy to get caught up in the mystery of Jack the Ripper,
Right.
but we can't forget that each of these victims was a real person
Absolutely.
with a life, a story.
And people who cared about them.
It's a good reminder.
It's important to remember the human cost of these crimes.
Absolutely. This deep dive hasn't just been about analyzing clues and signature behaviors.
Right.
It's been about trying to understand the human cost of these crimes.
Exactly.
And in that sense, I think we've uncovered something truly profound.
We have, and it brings us to that final thought-provoking question.
Okay.
The research paper poses,
Okay, hit me with it.
what kind of individual possesses the specific combination of psychological traits
Right.
revealed in Jack the Ripper's signature?
Okay.
If he wasn't caught, what might his life have been like after the Whitechapel murders?
Yeah, it's a question that takes us from the realm of forensic analysis into something much deeper.
Deeper.
The psychology of a killer. We've
Yes.
seen the brutality,
The brutality, huh?
the escalation, the chillingly specific signature.
It's a lot to unpack.
What does it tell us about the kind of person capable of these acts?
Well, if we consider what we've uncovered in this deep dive,
Right.
we can speculate that this was someone profoundly alienated from society.
Okay, alienated.
Someone harboring intense rage.
So much rage. Yeah.
The choice of victims, all women, all prostitutes, suggests a deep misogyny,
Misogyny.
a hatred or fear of women.
Right, and the picarism, as we've discussed,
Yeah.
is particularly disturbing.
It's a key element.
It wasn't enough to kill.
Right.
There was this need to inflict pain,
Mm.
to exert control even beyond death.
Control even in death, that's really disturbing.
That speaks to a deeply disturbed psyche.
Absolutely.
The posing of the bodies, the open display,
Right.
suggests a need for recognition, a desire to shock and instill fear.
It's like a twisted sense of pride in his work.
Oh, wow.
He wanted people to know what he'd done to see his power.
It's like he was playing a game
A game.
with the authorities, with society itself.
It's a terrifying thought.
But if he wasn't caught,
Right.
what might his life have been like after the Whitechapel murders?
That's a question.
Did he try to repress these urges?
Maybe.
Did he find other outlets for his rage?
Possibly.
Or was he consumed by it?
It's chilling to think about.
It is. It's a chilling thought.
The possibility that he lived a seemingly normal life,
Right, appeared normal.
carrying the weight of his horrific deeds.
Did he ever feel remorse?
Or did he find a way to justify his actions?
To compartmentalize.
To compartmentalize that darkness within himself?
It's a question we'll likely never have the answer to.
Probably not, no.
But it's a question that lingers,
It does linger.
that forces us to confront the unsettling reality
Uh-huh.
that evil can lurk anywhere,
Anywhere.
even in the hearts of those who appear ordinary.
Exactly. And it reminds us that understanding the psychology of a killer
Right.
isn't just about solving a crime.
It's about more than that.
It's about trying to comprehend the depths of human darkness.
Yeah, the depths of human darkness.
And in doing so, perhaps learning to recognize and prevent such horrors in the future.
So important.
It is
This deep dive has certainly given us a lot to ponder.
a lot to think about.
You've helped us separate fact from fiction.
Hopefully.
And more importantly, you've challenged us to think deeply about the nature of evil,
The nature of evil, yes.
the complexities of the human mind,
It's a fascinating and disturbing topic.
and the enduring mystery of Jack the Ripper.
It's a case that continues to fascinate us.
It does.
It's been my pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
Thank you for having me.
And remember, listeners, the search for answers never truly ends.
Keep searching.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the mysteries that fascinate you.
Absolutely.
So the question remains,
Okay.
what does this tell us about the nature of evil
Right.
and its potential to hide in plain sight?
Good question.
That's something for you to ponder as you continue your own deep dive into this haunting case.
Keep digging.
Until next time, keep those thinking caps on.